Okay, here we are ready to use the plate rather than make you watch me wrestle with this stuff. I've already started the top layer to peel off. And remember, this is actually 2 layers of Z-acryl instead of 1 layer of Imagon. They're both the same stuff. This is old and stale. I had it left over. I need to have the room lights on to make this video, which of course you don't want to do. You want to use yellow bug lights to prepare your plates. So I don't care much what happens to the material. You may notice the edges are not even. That doesn't matter because those edges are all going to be gone. A 6x9 image is, a 5x7 image is going to go in the center of this 6x9 piece of Imagon, which is in the center of an 8x12 piece of PETG plastic. So recall that we removed the top layer of the first layer of Imagon in order to attach the second layer of Imagon, and we are removing that top layer now. It may make a mess, I don't know. It sticks very hard because of the aged materials. It usually comes off much more simply than that. This is our prepared plate. This is my Epson 3880 printer. It's got just the standard Epson inks in it. Here's our prepared plate. Check it for dust before you put it into the printer. We're going to use the front feed only. You cannot use either of the rear feed options. The instruction manual will tell you exactly how to use the front feed, but it's very simple. Just line up the plate with this front white line at the front. Okay. It's a little reluctant. Just try that. There we go. Press the down button and it will load itself. Here's the plate. It's come finished in the printer. Remember that this uses only the matte black ink. No other inks are used. To release it, you must press the down button, and then you can pull your plate out. I don't know how well you'll be able to see you can see it pretty well. That's the image in matte black ink only. Notice the clear borders around the outside of the plate. That is to allow the material to feed through the printer with less likelihood of creating what I call railroad track marks on the image. The border of photosensitive material around the image itself will mostly get eaten away in the processing bath. Then the one thing you want to be sure to check for is railroad tracks. And I don't think, yes, I do see some. I haven't made any plates in a while, and that's a fairly common occurrence when you haven't printed any plates for a while. Let me get this focused. You hold the plate at an angle. You can pick out the railroad tracks. I can see them. Hold on a second. Yeah, I can see them right here in the black. I seriously doubt whether you can see them in the video, but they're noticeably there. And in that case, what you do is wash the ink off the plate, re-dry it, and run it through the printer again. Now in this case, this is old material I don't care about, and I'm just going to go ahead and expose and process the plate as is, and leave the railroad tracks there. When we're all done, we'll print this to see if the railroad tracks show, because sometimes you get railroad tracks and they don't show anyway. So now we're going to move on to putting the template over the plate for exposure and then exposing the plate. Alright, here we are with the plate sitting on a light box. Remember that this ink is wet. If you touch it, you're going to have to start over and wash the ink off, re-dry the plate, and print it again. The railroad tracks here are quite noticeable. on this particular plate, and that probably has to do with the fact that I didn't actually let it dry overnight, and it's still quite sticky. Dampness and stickiness tend to increase the likelihood of railroad tracks. Notice the really sloppy edge that I created by being in a hurry. None of this is going to appear in the final image because it's all going to disappear, and you're about to see why. Before you can expose this, you have to include it in a template. To attach it to the template, you need some painter's tape in the corners, rolled up. There's a paper that I uploaded to the Photogravure groups on both Facebook and Yahoo that discuss the preparation of the template and the use of this tape. It's the same tape we used to remove the coverings off the photopolymer material. This is the template I built for this size image. It's just mat board. Again, it's in that paper I uploaded. You center the plate in the opening, press down so that the template is attached to the plate by the painter's tape, and then this is the sliding bottom piece. You don't have to use ruby lith. This is ruby lith. You can use a thin piece of card or a heavy piece of paper, anything that'll block light. This is more painter's tape that I use to lock it down, and it's ready to go. This short-term exposure on the light box will do nothing to adversely affect the plate. It's now ready to expose. This is my New Arc plate burner. Here's the plate with template attached. I'm putting it over a piece of 4-ply black mat board, covering it with another. I don't use the New Arc's light measuring device. I just turn on the lamp and let it warm up for a few minutes, and then remove the piece of black card to start the exposure. I'm not going to bore you with waiting for that. After 3 or 4 minutes, I'll take this off and give it a 15-minute exposure. Okay, 15-minute exposure is up. I'm going to turn the lamp off, but leave the machine on so that the fan can cool down the head for a few minutes. Lift up the template, pull the plate out from under, remove the painter's tape. You can use these rolled up pieces of painter's tape for a half a dozen plates or so, and then it loses its tack and you have to make new ones. And there is the exposed tape with the ink still on it. Alright, the plate's been inked and exposed, or I should say printed and exposed. Remember, there's still the rear covering on the PETG plastic. This is the stage where you want to remove it. You can take it off before you print the image onto the photopolymer, but I usually leave it on until this point. Pull that off. Now we're ready to rinse the ink off the plate. Alright, here's our plate that's been exposed. It still has the ink on it. This is a grouting sponge cut up into a half a dozen smaller pieces. Any kind of very soft sponge will work. You don't want a conventional cleaning sponge, they're too rough. Dampen the sponge, wipe the ink off the plate. Do this a couple of times. The reason you want to take the ink off the plate is because it acts as a barrier between the exposed photopolymer and the processing chemical, and you don't want to interfere with the even processing of the plate. And that's the ink all off. You can see there's still plenty of visible image there without the ink. And now let's go to processing. Okay, processing is pretty straightforward. This is 50 milliliters of 1% sodium carbonate in 1 liter of plain water at 20 degrees centigrade. you want to keep the temperature as close to 20 degrees centigrade as you can. It's fairly easy to get a little too carried away and process your shadows away when the temperature of the processing bath is too warm. You want gentle rocking, gentle agitation. If you get carried away, the edges of the image will process faster than the center, and you'll get edges where the shadows have been eaten away. This is also called open bite for those unfamiliar with the term. And what happens with open bite is that there's nothing there to hold the ink in the darker regions, and you get blank areas without ink in some of your darker regions instead of the heavier blacks that you're after. Again, let me remind everybody, I have the room lights on during all of this process in the videos, which is not normal. I usually do everything under yellow bug lights from the hardware store, because these fluorescent lights that I have in my work area do tend to expose photopolymer and have the potential to ruin a plate. Although in the half hour to an hour or so that we're doing this, probably not by much. But still, you don't want to do this with fluorescent lights, or even less any sort of daylight coming into the room. Preferably nothing but yellow bug lights for the entire process. Now, I use this single tray for all of my plate processing. All three sizes of plate that I process fit in this tray, so I don't have to worry or scratch my head which tray do I use. I just always grab the same tray. One thing the yellow bug light seems to do for me that I find an advantage is it helps me to judge the plate better than I'm just now discovering this, than the standard fluorescent white lighting in the room. I'm being just a little too vigorous here because I'm distracted. Now remember, if we left the ink off the plate, there'd be some parts of the plate where the processing bath would just now be getting through the ink to the plate, and we don't want that because it would be uneven. Now, because we had the template over this plate as it was being exposed, these edges got no exposure, and they're all going to disappear in processing, which will give us a nice clean edge uniformly spaced around the outer edge of the image, instead of randomly spaced as we would have had without the template. The processing time at 20 degrees centigrade is about 5 minutes with gentle agitation, and 1 additional minute with gentle encouragement of the edges to come off. Now, I actually forgot to start the timer for this, so I'm going to have to guess at the proper time. Sometimes you can feel little pieces of extra material outside the image area that you can scrape off with your thumb. And we are going to have a less than perfect plate here, but that's almost entirely due to the fact that I used outdated materials and did not allow the light-sensitive photopolymer to dry overnight as I usually do, because I just wanted to go ahead and get get this video done. So I set myself up for failure, and there will be a little bit of failure involved here, but not much. This material is really quite resilient. You can be pretty rough with it and still get a pretty good result. You will see bits and pieces of dark material sliding down the face of the plate as you observe it after pulling it out of the processing tray. That just washes off, don't worry about it. You can see it moving, so you know it's not attached. I'm going to call this 6 minutes, and I'm going to wash off the plate. Now, the plate is still processing because it still has the sodium carbonate in the material. So the first thing to do is to wash that off. Rinse off both sides thoroughly and apply a small amount of liquid dish soap. This is what I've been using, to the surface of the polymer, and use your fingers to thoroughly wash that surface. If you don't, there will be some of the sodium carbonate trapped in the polymer, and it does nasty things both to the appearance of the plate and to your paper. It will cause the paper to tend to stick to the image area of the plate, and you'll ruin paper and you'll be all upset. Okay, well washed. Ordinary kitchen white vinegar, mixed 1 to 5 with water, just tap water. Spray it on, rub it in. This counters any sodium carbonate left in the material, stops all further processing. Rinse that off. Then we're going to go dry the plate. You've seen this before. Paper towel, always from the center outwards. And blow dry. Wipe down the opposite side of the plate with a dry paper towel a little bit, just to be sure you got all the water off it. Then set this somewhere to dry for an hour or two before you attempt to print it, because it can still be a little bit sticky for a while. Some people prefer to cure the plate. If you want to do that, put it in a window facing the sun, or put it back in your plate burner for a couple of minutes in the sun for another 10 or 12 minutes under the plate burner. I have found that it doesn't seem to make any difference. So I would say skip it until you realize that it's absolutely necessary, which I doubt is going to happen. And that's it. The plate's ready to print as soon as it's sat for a while.